John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, was assassinated while riding in a presidential motorcade through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas, on November 22, 1963. Kennedy was in the vehicle with his wife, Jacqueline, Texas Governor John Connally, and Connally's wife, Nellie, when he was fatally shot from the nearby Texas School Book Depository by Lee Harvey Oswald, a former U.S. Marine. The motorcade rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where Kennedy was pronounced dead about 30 minutes after the shooting. Connally was also wounded in the attack but recovered. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson was hastily sworn in as president 2 hours and 8 minutes later on board Air Force One at Dallas Love Field. After the assassination, Oswald returned home to retrieve a pistol. He shot and killed a lone Dallas policeman, J.D. Tippit, shortly afterwards. Around 70 minutes after Kennedy and Connally were shot, Oswald was apprehended by the Dallas Police Department and charged under Texas state law with the murders of Kennedy and Tippit. 2 days later, as live television cameras covered Oswald being moved through the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters, he was fatally shot by Dallas nightclub operator Jack Ruby. Like Kennedy, Oswald was taken to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where he soon died. Ruby was convicted of Oswald's murder, though the decision was overturned on appeal, and Ruby died in prison in 1967 while awaiting a new trial. After a 10-month investigation, the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald assassinated Kennedy, and that there was no evidence that either Oswald or Ruby was part of a conspiracy. In 1967, New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison brought the only trial for Kennedy's murder against businessman Clay Shaw. Shaw was acquitted. Subsequent federal investigations, such as the Rockefeller Commission and Church Committee, agreed with the Warren Commission's general findings. In its 1979 report, the United States Select Committee on Assassinations concluded that Kennedy was likely assassinated as a result of a conspiracy. The HSCA did not identify possible conspirators, but concluded that there was a high probability that two gunmen fired at the president. The HSCA's conclusion were largely based on a police dictabelt recording later debunked by the U.S. Justice Department. Kennedy's assassination is still the subject of widespread debate and has spawned many conspiracy theories and alternative scenarios. Polls have found that a vast majority of Americans believe that there was a conspiracy. The assassination left a profound impact and was the first of 4 major assassinations during the 1960s, coming 2 years before the assassination of Malcolm X in 1965 and 5 years before the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Kennedy's brother Robert in 1968. Kennedy was the 4th U.S. president to be assassinated and is the most recent to have died in office. Lee Harvey Oswald, born in 1939, was a former U.S. Marine who had served in Japan and the Philippines and had espoused communist beliefs since reading Karl Marx at age 14. After accidentally shooting his elbow with an unauthorized handgun and fighting an officer, Oswald was court-martialed twice and demoted. In September 1959, he received a dependency discharge after claiming his mother was disabled. A 19-year-old Oswald sailed on a freighter from New Orleans to France and then traveled to Finland, where he was issued a Soviet visa. Oswald defected to the Soviet Union, and in January of 1960 he was sent to work at a factory in Minsk, Belarus. In 1961 he met and married Marina Prusakova, with whom he had a child. In 1962, he returned to the United States with a repatriation loan from the U.S. Embassy. He settled in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, where he socialized with Russian émigrés, notably George de Motorenchild, a CIA informant. In March 1963, a bullet narrowly missed General Edwin Walker at his Dallas residence. A witness observed 2 conspicuous men. Relying on Marina's testimony, a note left by Oswald, and ballistic evidence, the Warren Commission attributed this assassination attempt to Oswald. In April 1963, Oswald returned to his birthplace, New Orleans, and established an independent chapter of the Pro-Castro Fair Play for Cuba Committee, of which he was the sole member. While passing out pro-Castro literature alongside unknown compatriots, Oswald was arrested after scuffling with anti-Castro Cuban exiles. In late September 1963, Oswald traveled to Mexico City, where, according to the Warren Commission, he visited the Soviet and Cuban embassies. On October 3rd, Oswald returned to Dallas and found work at the Texas School Book Depository on Dealey Plaza. During the work week, he lived separately from Marina at a Dallas rooming house. On the morning of the assassination, he carried a long package, which he told co-workers contained curtain rods, into the depository. The Warren Commission concluded that this package contained Oswald's disassembled rifle. On the evening of November 21st, Air Force One touched down in Fort Worth, Texas at 11:07 p.m. The President and First Lady arrived at the hotel in downtown Fort Worth at 11:39 p.m. The following morning, November 22nd, President Kennedy and the First Lady boarded a 1961 Lincoln Continental convertible limousine to travel to a luncheon at the Dallas Trade Mart. Other occupants of this vehicle, the second in the motorcade, were Secret Service Agent Bill Greer, who drove, Special Agent Roy Kellerman in the front passenger seat, and Governor Connolly and his wife Nellie, who sat just forward of the Kennedys. 4 Dallas police motorcycle officers accompanied the Kennedy limousine. Vice President Johnson, his wife Lady Bird, and Senator Yarborough rode in another convertible. The motorcade's meandering 10-mile route through Dallas was designed to give Kennedy maximum exposure to crowds by passing through a suburban section of Dallas and Main Street in downtown Dallas before turning right on Houston Street. After another block, the motorcade was to turn left onto Elm Street, pass through Dealey Plaza, and travel through a short segment of the Stemmons Freeway to the Trade Mart. The planned route had been reported in newspapers several days in advance. Despite concerns about hostile predators, Kennedy's UN ambassador, Adlai Stevenson, had been spat on in Dallas a month earlier. Kennedy was greeted warmly by enthusiastic crowds. Kennedy's limousine entered Dealey Plaza at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Nellie Connolly turned and commented to Kennedy, "Mr. President, they can't make you believe now that there are not some in Dallas who love and appreciate you, can't they?" Kennedy's reply, "No, they sure can't," were his last words. From Houston Street, the limousine made a planned left turn onto Elm, passing the Texas School Book Depository. As it continued down Elm Street, multiple shots were fired. About 80% of the witnesses recalled hearing 3 shots. The Warren Commission concluded that 3 shots were fired and noted that most witnesses recalled the second and third shots were bunched together. Shortly after Kennedy began waving, some witnesses heard the first gunshot, but few in the crowd or motorcade reacted, many interpreting the sound as a firecracker or backfire. Within 1 second of each other, Governor Connolly and Mrs. Kennedy turned abruptly from their left to their right. Connolly, an experienced hunter, immediately recognized the sound as that of a rifle and turned his head and torso rightward, noting nothing unusual behind him. He testified that he could not see Kennedy, so he started to turn forward again, turning from his right to his left, and that when his head was facing about 20 degrees left of center, he was struck in the upper right back by a shot he did not hear. Then shouted, "My God, they're going to kill us all." According to the Warren Commission and the HSCA, Kennedy was waving to the crowds on his right when a shot entered his upper back and exited his throat beneath his larynx. He raised his elbows and clenched his fist in front of his face and neck, then leaned forward and leftward. Miss Kennedy, facing him, put her arms around him. Although a serious wound, it likely would have been survivable. According to the Warren Commission's single bullet theory, derided as the magic bullet theory by conspiracy theorists, Governor Connolly was injured by the same bullet that exited Kennedy's neck. The bullet created an oval-shaped entry wound near Connolly's shoulder, struck and destroyed several inches of his right fifth rib, and exited his chest just below his right nipple, puncturing and collapsing his lung. That same bullet then entered his arm just above his right wrist and shattered his right radius bone. The bullet exited just below the wrist at the inner side of his right palm and finally lodged in his left thigh. As the limousine passed the grassy knoll, Kennedy was struck a second time by a fatal shot to the head. The Warren Commission made no finding as to whether or not this was the second or third bullet fired and concluded, as did the HSCA, that the second shot to strike Kennedy entered the rear of his head. It then passed in fragments through his skull, creating a large, roughly ovular hole on the rear right side of his head, and spraying blood in fragments. His brain and blood splatter landed as far as the following Secret Service car and the motorcycle officers. Secret Service agent Clint Hill was riding on the running board of the car immediately behind Kennedy's limousine. Hill testified to the Warren Commission that he heard one shot, jumped on the street, and ran forward to board the limousine to protect Kennedy. Hill stated that he heard the fatal headshot as he reached the Lincoln, approximately 5 seconds after the first shot that he heard. After the headshot, Mrs. Kennedy began climbing onto the limousine's trunk, but she later had no recollection of doing so. Hill believed that she may have been reaching for a piece of Kennedy's skull. He later jumped onto the limousine bumper, and he clung to the car as it exited Dealey Plaza and sped to the Parkland Memorial Hospital. After Miss Kennedy crawled back into her seat, both Governor and Mrs. Connolly heard her repeatedly saying, "They haven't killed my husband. I have his brains in my hand." Bystander James Togg received a minor wound to the cheek, either from bullet or concrete curb fragments, while standing by the triple underpass. 9 months later, the FBI removed the curb, and spectrographic analyses revealed metallic residue consistent with the lead core in Oswald's ammunition. Togg testified before the Warren Commission and initially stated he was wounded by either the second or third of the 3 shots that he remembered hearing. When the Commission counsel pressed him to be more specific, Togg testified that he was wounded by the second shot. As the motorcade left Dealey Plaza, some witnesses saw cover, and others joined police officers to run up the grassy knoll in search of a shooter. No shooter was found behind the knoll's picket fence. Among the 178 witnesses who testified to the Warren Commission, 78 were unsure of the shot's origin, 49 believed that they came from the depository, and 21 thought they came from the grassy knoll. The Babushka Lady is an unidentified woman present during the 1963 assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy, who is speculated to have photographed or filmed the events that occurred in Dallas Dealey Plaza at the time President Kennedy was shot. Her nickname arose from the U.S. Army headscarf she wore, which was similar to scarves worn by elderly Russian women. Babushka, Russian, literally means grandmother or old woman. The Babushka Lady was seen holding a camera by eyewitnesses and was also seen in film accounts of the assassination. She was observed standing on the grass between Elm and Main Streets, standing amongst onlookers in front of the Dallas Country Building, and is visible in the Zapruder film, as well as in the films of Orville Nix, Murray Muchmore, and Mark Bell. 44 minutes and 47 seconds into the Bell film, even though the shooting had already taken place and most of her surrounding witnesses took cover, she can be seen still standing with the camera at her face. After shooting, she crossed Elm Street and joined the crowd that went up the grassy knoll. The Babushka Lady is last seen in photographs walking east on Elm Street. Neither she nor the film she may have taken have ever been positively identified. Her first appearance on film chronologically is on the sidewalk in front of the Dallas County Building, which is visible in an image as being on Kennedy's right. She would have crossed Houston Street and onto Dealey Plaza in order to be visible in the Dealey Plaza images. This may imply that the images show 2 different women of similar appearance. It is plausible that once the motorcade passed by, she was able to cross the street and to catch a second motorcade drive-by past. to catch a second motorcade drive past on Dealey Plaza where she would have been on Kennedy's left. Beverly Oliver's claim. In 1970, a woman named Beverly Oliver told conspiracy researcher Gary Shaw at a church revival meeting in Joshua, Texas, that she was the Babushka Lady. Oliver stated that she filmed the assassination with a Super 8 film Yashica that she turned undeveloped film over to two men who identified themselves to her as FBI agents. According to Oliver, she obtained no receipt from the men, who told her that they would return the film to her within 10 days. She did not follow up with an inquiry. Oliver reiterates her claims in the 1988 documentary The Men Who Killed Kennedy. According to Vincent Bugliosi, Oliver has never proved to most people's satisfaction that she was in Dealey Plaza that day. Confronted with the fact that the Yashica Super 8 camera was not made until 1969, she stated that she received the experimental camera from a friend and was not sure the manufacturer's name was on it. House Select Committee on Assassinations report. In March 1979, Photographic Evidence Panel of the United States Select Committee on Assassinations indicated that they were unable to locate any film attributed to the Babushka Lady. According to their report, initially, Robert Grodin, a photographic consultant to the committee, advised the panel as to the pertinent photographic issues and related materials. Committee investigators located many of the suggested films and photographs. However, some items were never located, i.e., the Babushka Lady film, a color photograph by Norman Similas, and the original negative of the Betzner photograph. Public hearings of the Assassination Records Review Board. On November 18, 1994, assassination researcher Gary Mack testified before the Assassination Records Review Board that he had been recently told by an executive in Kodak's Dallas office that a woman in her early 30s with brunette hair brought in film purported to be of the assassination scene while they were processing the Zapruder film. According to Mack, the executive said that the woman who explained to federal investigators already at the film processing office that she ran from Main Street across the grass to Elm Street, where she stopped and snapped a photo with some people in the foreground of the presidential limousine and the Texas School Book Depository. Mack said that he was told by the Kodak executive that the photo was extremely blurry and virtually useless, and indicated that the woman likely went home without anyone recording her identity. After suggesting that the woman in the story may have been the Babushka Lady, Mack then told the board, "I do not believe that Beverly Oliver is the Babushka Lady," or let me rephrase that, "She certainly could be, but the rest of the story is a fabrication." Oliver stated that she was 17 years old at the time of the assassination. She told the board that she was filming with an experimental 8mm movie camera, approximately 20 to 30 feet from Kennedy where he was shot, and the film was confiscated by a man who identified himself as an FBI agent. According to Oliver, she handed the camera over because the man was an authority figure and because she feared being caught in possession of marijuana. Oliver's claims were addressed point by point and debunked by conspiracy theorist researcher John McAdams.